Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 89, June 5th, 2020, A Woman's Guide to Conscious Love, a post-feminist love manual. How does your relationship support your life? What ways can you bring love and presence into daily rituals? How can you practice healthy boundaries, aligning with your intuition, and taking action into owning self-love? I'm really excited because I have a special guest. It's Anne O'Brien. Hello, Anne.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
And I always like to begin because I always like, if people are curious, like, how do we meet? How do we connect? And I've known Anne for quite many years, and I feel like we always are kind of connecting through email or Facebook. We're on each other's psychic radar, I feel like, because I don't even remember how we met, but it was in our little mountain town here in Topanga with your daughter. Our kids were little tiny babies, and it's so fun just to see, like, we've been just in the psychic space with our work and very busy, which is really amazing throughout the years and just growing and developing in that. But I want to introduce my special guest, a little bit about Anne O'Brien. Is an intuitive healer, coach, and teacher of practical spirituality and empowered living. Since 1999, she worked with thousands of clients, and she has recently published her first book, A Woman's Guide to Conscious Love, Navigating the Play of Feminine and Masculine Energy in Your Relationships. She incorporates creativity, holistic living, and a no-nonsense mysticism into everything she does. I love, this is a good book. A Woman's Guide to Conscious Love. This is what we need for everybody. Right?
Yes.
What
Men
was
and
the
women
inspiration?
seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, men too. Not to leave out our wonderful male energies here and male partners here. I'm selfish. I'm going right for the feminine. I'd love to hear what inspired you to create this book.
Sure. Well, I've worked with so many women, and their number one question is usually relationships for most women. And I was noticing some themes where women were, on the one hand, really wanting men to show up and ravish them and protect and provide and be these amazing men. And then on the other hand, they're complaining about men. And they're like, he's just looking for mommy, or he wants money, or they're just not having sex, or he's too domineering, or why did he disappear? And so they were having all these challenges. And I realized that as women, there are ways we can show up differently to bring out the best in the masculine. And if we can start to understand kind of the energetic impact on our actions and our words, and more than just like a lot of dating coaches will tell you, here's what you say, here's what you wear, here's what you do. But as an intuitive, I was like, on a deeper level, maybe you're crowding him with your energy and that's why he disappeared. Or you had something happen in your childhood that is still hanging out around you, and so you're attracting mirror reflections of that in these people you're dating. So I really wanted to help women understand how they could create a better experience with love, and especially with the masculine.
Yeah, the thing I love about the book, the way it's set up, you're not just kind of reading. It's like there's notes, there's these really beautiful meditations, so there's a lot of reflection, because as you say, there is a big intuitive connection in there. It's like, what is this connection of with yourself? And I love this. I have so many tabs right now. We'll see if we can get through them all. And this first tab, of course, I really love is Loving Yourself is the title. Let's talk about that. Like, what is this? Why is it that, and maybe this is the big question that I have even. It's like,
right.
What is this? Like, why is it so hard to be in self-love? Like, what is that? Like, maybe I'm just curious what your insight is. I mean, that's a really big question.
Yes, there's so many answers I could give, depending on the context. And yeah, it's a huge subject. What comes to mind right away to say, and I'm just going to trust this is what our listeners need to hear, is that especially as women, we tend to be very responsible. We make children, so we have to be. And I think as women, when things don't go the way we hope, or things don't work out in relationships, or we're having a hard time, we tend to take responsibility, and often in an unhealthy or unconscious way. And so then we beat ourselves up, or we feel guilty, or we feel ashamed, or we try to make it perfect, or we overfunction. So that's just one answer, but that's the first thing that comes to mind is why it's so hard.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. The level of responsibility, like, because we create, it's like that is a really, that is a big piece of that. I really love another part here is, let me see, where is this? You're always in relationship. I'm like, yeah, aren't we always in relationship? Like, it's a really thing. Even that title alone provokes some like pondering, that's what your intention is, right? It's like to get the energy going. And so I had a friend once tell me, speaking about a sexual relationship, she goes, and I love this, and it never crossed my mind until she said this. She goes, your first sexual partner is you. Your second is your partner. And I'm like, blown. My mind is like blown open, which is so simple. But just like, I never really, connected it to that way. Like, oh, okay. I'm like going with that because then if I can't be open sexually with myself, how can I be open in partnership? I feel like for me that would be very. So I'd love to hear more about this relationship piece, being in a relationship with the self.
Sure.
With others.
Right. Well, this chapter that you're referencing came about because, my teacher talked about it. He's like, people say they don't have a relationship, and then they go through life with that story, and they're closed off to all the love that could come their way. And so that was already on my radar. And then I had this client come to me, and I told this story in the book where she came to see me, and we're sitting across from each other in chairs, and she's got this permanent frown on her face. And her big thing that she wanted help with was that she did not have not only not an intimate partner, she didn't have a friend, she didn't have family. She said if she got sick or she needed help, she didn't have anyone to call. And the whole time she's very withdrawn with her energy. She's got the frown on her face. And I'm almost like jumping up and down, waving my arms in front of her, trying to show empathy, trying to care for her, and she's like barely receiving me. And here she was, somebody who had paid me and taken the time to come see me. And I was like, whoa. So if you have a story that you don't have a relationship, not only are you not going to get an intimate partner, but you're going to miss out on so much. And I think so often we put up these walls. And I had another story where I had this guy I was dating long distance, and I remember going to the grocery store with him in Santa Monica, and he wasn't committing to me. He was like, every now and then we'd see each other and it was fun, but there's no commitment. Like, he's like, you should find a boyfriend local. But I wasn't hearing him, and I kept thinking, oh, he's my guy. And he's like basically like in my face at the grocery store, like, Ann, you're missing all these guys. Like, look up. Like, he was right. I looked up, and there's all these good-looking guys around, and I'm not even registering. So I think people that are yearning for whether it's a partner or more love within their marriage or more love in their community or with their children, they could look at what's already there, and that would really heal a lot for us.
You just make me think about, I'm thinking of these two particular women that I've known since I was a child. And these two women are great women, right? You probably hear this, like just so present, leaders, strong, they got their weaknesses and things, but they just cannot like get solid, like with a relationship that like is fulfilling. And that's, maybe they got to read the book probably. But it's like, do you hear that a lot from women? It's like, I'm, 40-something years old, and I'm not in a partnership, and they just kind of coming and going.
Yeah.
But that's probably so individual. What can you say about that for that great woman that's like, she's like, something's wrong with me, I'm broken.
Well, I noticed that as a theme too, and I think especially when I was in LA for some reason, more so than now I live in the mountains of Colorado. But I think there's just a lot of really smart, really evolved women out there that I don't want to say are ahead of the men, because I think the male energy is amazing, but I think women have had so much support, and women, thanks to feminism, we've had the support to go out and work and be strong in the world, and we've had the support to tap into our feminine energy. And, there's two things I could say. I think sometimes women have gotten so strong that they're not in touch with the feminine that would call in a partner. And I would also say that I think women have had so much support that the men in general haven't had. that oftentimes this is causing this pattern of like so many women that don't have a man, especially in that age group. What do you think?
Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's so many different pieces to that. Because I look at these different women and I'm thinking about it, I'm going, well, you know, I'm going to get all like psychic and medical intuitive on them and look at their like past lives and look at the ancestors, if it's allowed to be seen, I should even say, because sometimes those things aren't revealed, or you know, some people don't want to go there. I don't want to do the mommy and daddy work, or I don't, you know. There's so many, you know, it's like so many different pieces. I don't have that one answer. I'm sure, it's very ongoing and individual to people. But I was thinking about that. I was like, what is with some of these women? I'm like, I mean, we all have our stuff. That's the thing. We all have our issues and things. But I'm going, is that really the obstacle, though? Because I bring it back to conception. When I see a woman like going year after year after year after year and they're just not able to conceive, I'm like, it's not just one thing. It's multi-level. It's like there's just so many different pieces to that. And I'm going, what is that? And, of course, with people, as you know, working more consistently with, you get to see the bigger story than just people popping in and out. It's like, okay, you're going to get what you get, but then there's so much more to the story. And so I would relate it back to the relationship even with themselves and their body to conceive. Which is another relationship, right? It's like, you know, but another thing here, of course, I'm going to move like a little bit through the things that I really, you know, kind of, you know, talk to me. And I feel like even those that I worked with and connected with, boundaries. Oh gosh, that word boundaries. Boundaries. I love how you have here, you even have an exercise, a practice, like, you know, to even look at that. And I almost feel like you could probably write a whole book on that.
I'm sure. Yeah. I think that boundaries really ties into the self-love piece, that when you have the self-love, then your boundaries become very, very natural. So a lot of people have approached boundaries of like putting up walls or getting firm and taking a stand for things and saying no. And, you know, if you're in an abusive situation, sometimes you have to do that, right? But most of the women that come to me, it's not that extreme. It's more like saying yes when they mean no, or, you know, maybe just more subtle things that go on. And I think if you're not used to setting boundaries too, it can come across at the beginning of like, whoa, that was harsh. But then the more you practice just embodiment and self-love, you will naturally set a boundary. In fact, I think your energy becomes the boundary. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. It's just you're emanating a certain frequency or vibration, so to speak, and what you're available for, and you say yes, please, or no, thank you. It's just easy. So that's kind of the direction I go with boundaries in the book.
Yeah, I really, again, I feel like it's such a expanded topic, and it's true. There's so many different, like, you know, not putting up that strong wall. It's like, that's what we hear boundaries. Like, boundary, like, there it is. It's like a gated, like, steel, concrete. Like, right. Like, oh, no, like, how do we then? I know for myself, when I never had boundaries until my 20s because I grew up in an unboundaried family. Maybe you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Especially with my mom, I grew up with a mentally ill mother that had a lot of sexual and physical abuse. And so I didn't know. How would I know what a boundary looks like? And I realized, really, seriously, I realized in my 20s when other women were teaching me what boundaries were, and a specific healer I worked with, became dear friends with, I was like, oh, that's a boundary? I had no clue. I didn't realize. But I also was like, oh, this is hard work. This is hard work to retrain myself and others and what my respect looked like and what my self-care looked like. It was not easy. You know, for me, I had to get really sick with an autoimmune disorder to like realize, do I die or do I have a boundary, Kelly? Like, what does that look like? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll die. I mean, I was kind of like that a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. What did you say?
It is hard at the beginning if you're not used to it. You know, for me, I did martial arts, and I still do, but I had a lot more edge in my 20s than I do now just because I didn't know. Like, nobody taught me it was okay to set a boundary, so it was like, and now it doesn't have to be. So I like to show people that it doesn't have to be that. But, yeah, it does take a lot of work. been raised else, in a different way.
Yeah. And I liked what you said about like the intuitive process of it. Like it just kind of is emanating into your vibration. Like you don't have to go out there and be like, hey, here's my boundary, people. It's like you're creating it through your emotional space, through your awareness, and then it becomes that. Because I do see a lot of women that do have a lot of boundary stuff that does come up. So it's a big space for me. And so I see it very, I almost feel like, sometimes they're like, oh, I see that very clearly with other people. Yeah. And especially when it comes to mother-father stuff and boundaries. And so, but it's, and a lot of empathic women, right? They're like, sometimes they have codependency, enmeshment, and they're like, oh, what's a boundary? What is that? Can I go buy one? Is this something that's real? Like I have to do this, or I want to do this? Is there so much, I feel like, around but creating that? But it's healthy, and it means, I almost feel like, for my interpretation, I feel like it means like you care about yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you can be proactive with it once you've learned how to do it. And I think a lot of us empathic people are naturally intuitive people. I know for myself, like I developed those abilities as a kid because I didn't feel like people were telling me the truth about what was going on. And so I had to use my psychic abilities to figure it out. And I know a lot of people that have had trauma in their past, they develop psychic abilities so they can feel safe. And so how do you then not overextend your energy if you've develop that as a way to feel safe or a way to feel like you understand things? You know what I mean?
Mhm. I don't know. I must have a lot of trauma then. I have a lot of abilities that are
like the women in relationships that are tracking their men. I had one client that came to me, and her big issue was she was scared he was cheating. And I was like, okay, well, let's work with this. And I saw she was energetically tracking him. And so he was depolarized because her energy was all over his face. So he was not attracted to her. So I just helped her pull her energy back, and we worked on just kind of breathing and getting sensually present in her own body. And she emailed me later. She's like, he came home and was like, what did you do? You look so beautiful. And I was like, well, that answers that. That's all you have to do. But that habit of energetically tracking a man because you're scared and you want to feel safe that he's loves you, it can backfire. So when it comes to relationships, that's one way that gets applied. And the boundary is just like being present in your own body. Then you become the boundary.
Yeah, and I totally vibe what you're saying because, and I've said this for years, like when I start to feel like I'm going through some shifting or I need something from my partner, I start really kind of feeling it inside me, and all of a sudden I notice that my partner starts changing, and I'm like, I didn't get to say anything. I thought I had to nag or yell about it, but I'm like, oh, look, I'm playing with different things because I do nag. I think that most maybe women do, but I'm like, I'm trying to not do that as much, let's say, especially after kids. I feel like, oh my gosh. That's why I'm like, this book is helpful for me. I got to reread it. I got to keep rereading it. Because I'm in a house full of boys too. I'm like in a house full of males, so I have two boys and a husband.
Female.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's just very it's very intense. Like this is why I have my little goddess room with very feminine. I have a vagina pillow, which now people know. I've never shared that, but it was like handmade on Etsy. I have things that are like, how much more feminine can I create a feminine cave, a feminine, space that, but it is different. I feel like the masculine is a part of my mystery in this world at a very young age, what this masculine energy is about. Because even when I was pregnant, I was like, do I want boys or girls? And I was really scared to have boys. So I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm going to embody them now. And now I'm like trying to understand them. And it's a daily thing because the way they think and how they are is very different. Like I'm processing, I'm a speaker, but the young boys aren't really like that. They're very physical, they're very reactive. So they have to think about things a little bit more. Like I come up with a solution, a creative thing. I could multitask, and I realize that maybe not everybody's like that, especially in
an opportunity for you.
Yeah, a lot of practice of like, hey, like, what is this about? Like, slow down. Like, look at them. Don't think that you have all the answers because you think you're right, and it just sounds so good. I go into that space a lot.
Right. Well, that's that female creative energy that we've got, like the amount of energy we have to make a baby. So it's just like, yeah, let's process, let's figure it out, let's make it better. And they're like,
I like the way you said that, yeah. And they're looking at me like, wow, like that. I always call it, this is kind of probably not very nice, but I call it like the hamster wheel. Like it's like, like, hello, am I getting into you? But it's like, you know, really owning that creative force, like you said, and being, and I do feel like I'm every day I have such strong creativity, even just inspired by my work and just different projects. And I'm drawing pictures and I'm journaling and I'm knitting and I'm going out in the world and singing around, creating poetry. And I'm like, this feels really good. I like this creative flow. I like this kind of, you know, how it moves, and then how they all have to move in their own way as well, obviously, with their own, you know, space in the world, not the way I want to do it.
Right, yeah, and that's something I teach about with women too, like the art of embracing and having and owning all of that creative energy, but then knowing how it impacts the masculine and adjusting without suppressing.
Yeah, because maybe we'll talk about that even, because I do know I work with a lot of women who struggle with infertility. They've had the diagnosis or they're just not sure. Sometimes I've seen women go 5, 7, even 10 years, and I've supported women conceiving after 10 years, but it's like, whoa, like, and I wonder what the dynamic is of relationship, because it does come up sometimes, but some women are very like scared, or it's kind of like, oh boy, like we have to go into that part because. You know, I was like, how? And I tell women, if you're in a coupled relationship, whether it's girl-girl, boy-boy, boy-girl, that there's going to be, everybody's got to show up for this conscious conception together. It's just really hard if it's just one or the other, right? What can you speak about that? And maybe you've seen women come to you that are in that situation. I don't know.
Well, I've noticed a lot of women come to it in a more calculated way, like, okay, this is the month we're going to start trying, we're planning, and they're very much in their heads about it. And oftentimes their partners are too, and or their partners are disconnected. I've seen also the opposite. Like my partner, when I had a child, we're not together anymore, but he was very tuned in. He's very intuitive. He's like, this is the month we're going to try, open the portal, go say a prayer, and boom, first try. So it can happen that way. And I think sometimes it's, the women are just really, really driven. Sometimes I see, like, and I know you work a lot with birth loss, and I'll see, like, abortions or especially miscarriages, if the relationship is not meant to be. You know, sometimes the child will come in and then they'll get pregnant and miscarry, and then they'll divorce a month later. I don't know if you've seen that, but I think the babies will choose if there's alignment or not, if they want to come in. Like if the partners are unified, or if they're really like not getting along, the baby will come or go or stay or not.
I know. There's such a mystery and complexity I've seen with miscarriage with women. I do get a lot of women coming miscarriage, probably weekly, I'd say. And really, you know, depending on the woman's journey and how deep she wants to go and look at that connection. And I've seen, for sure, I've seen miscarriage definitely connected to relationship, partnership, and women suspected it too. And, you know, then I tell women, just trust your intuition and just go with it, move with it. And, you know, still speak to your body, speak to baby, and see what is this next piece. And I tell women, make your partners, your husband, especially if they're masculine, I said, make them accountable. Make them accountable for the inner work that you're doing. That's so much right now. And then they're just kind of sitting there not doing anything and not eating right. And how is that helping you guys conceive together? Because I've seen when couples are in the same energetic space, and page, I should say, I've actually seen people go through major struggle. And when they're getting their partner kind of aligned in it, I see them conceive. And so,
that's right.
But I think a lot of women tend to pull the energy and go, oh, don't look at him. It's all, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to, again, maybe it's like a mommy thing. Like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take over.
Right.
But then they're like, almost like they don't want to look at it. We don't want to look at his part.
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm going. And then some people, and then some people, I will say, hey, do you think that your partner, if I've been working them for like many months, like every week sometimes, I'm going, do you think that your partner would be open to like connect with me? Sometimes they're a little scared and they're like, oh, I don't know, let's kind of come back to that. And some people are like, yeah, but I always tell them, you have to tell your partner, that your husband, that they have to want to be there, because I'm not going to be trying to read and connect with energy if you know how that is. It's like, it feels like a competition then. And it's like, what, are you here for me to kind of connect with your energy and see or not? So I'm like, I'm like really hardcore now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'm so in this, like, I don't have time for this. Like, I have actually people that want to be in this space. And I laugh because I'm kind of like, I feel like in the past few years, I had a lot of men sessions, especially just one-on-one without their partner. And I tell them, I said, here's the disclaimer. I said, what we're saying is confidential. I said, if you want to share anything with your wife after, that's you. And if she wants to share with me about your session, or you want to share the recording with her, that's fine. But I'm not going to go in and talk about you. I had to be really clear about that, because I know how women are. And it's like, we're not going to talk about your partner if they're not here. And it's their private energetic connection that I'm, connecting with them, their body and their baby in a way that's helping give to this journey together. And so I found that to be really, really nice to do that. And it feels really good. And I'm really happy when I see conscious men. I'm like really excited to just see, it's so beautiful and so and because I feel like in our world, we don't see a lot of that. Even with the media, we don't see that. You have to go and find it. I don't know what that is, but it's like, you have to I don't know,
I've had some men come to me and I can feel they're so, so grateful that I can receive them, and I validate their masculine energy, and I validate their vulnerability and their challenges. And I even had one man come to me, his wife never did, for fertility, and they got pregnant after one session. And I didn't know till a year or two later. Yeah, because he was referred to me by another male client, so that was the connection. I didn't have any connection to his wife. But I was so excited, the next time I saw him, he's like, look at the picture of my baby. I'm like, wait, we did that session for fertility and you got pregnant? I never heard the story until I ran into him 2 years later.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Because then it makes me think about, sometimes I get some women that are like, I'm not in partnership, but I want a baby, but I want my partner. How do I do that? And I always say a joke, Anne, but I send a lot of people your way, by the way, who ask me that. I do. I was like, because I feel like you're the relationship intuitive psychic, and I go, okay, and I go, and I go, and I think we talked about that before. Like, can I send people? Because actually, just even a few weeks ago, I sent this woman, and said, do you have a rep? I was like, oh yeah, I would go, to definitely see Anne, because it's like that's a lot of energy for me, and it's a whole other piece. I feel like it's a whole other area to work in.
Right.
I'm just working more with people that are already in it, not well, I kind of want, where's my partner and where are they? And I did have a session with a woman once who did go through IVF, and she had, a really wild, very traumatizing life. And she's 45 years old, and she's like, okay, I have these embryos that were donated to her, a beautiful gift. And all of a sudden in our session together, the baby was telling me that the partner's coming later. And little did I know, the partner came when she was pregnant. She got pregnant.
How cool.
with the second embryo. The first one, it didn't. Yeah, she got pregnant, met this man, and then comes and sees me, brings the baby, and says, "Here's my husband. He's adopted our child." I was like, "What is happening?" It was like wow. And because the whole idea, she had the whole idea, do I, wait for a partner? Do I do this on my own? And it's like, I'm going to do it on my own. But then it felt very insecure. I really want a partnership. And they have a house, and he adopted, their son. And I was just like, whoa. I was like, that is real. Wow, he did. I didn't know the timeline, but when he said, no, dad's coming later, I didn't know that meant in the middle of pregnancy. She didn't either. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I was like,
what a great story.
you couldn't have been she wasn't there. It wasn't, you're not thinking that that's going to happen, but it did. And now they're looking to hold energy and space for another. And so, that's really, really neat when that happens. Because again, I always tell people there's a level of mystery that, timelines change. I mean, I'm sure you get that too with people, or, I don't know, some energy shifts around a lot, but I do feel like some of these women are like, where's my partner? Where's my baby? I want to do this. Do you see a lot of women that ask you that?
Yeah, I have. And when you were talking about the women in their 40s that can't find a man, I've definitely met quite a few that are like, my clock is ticking. I don't know how much more fertility I have, and I don't have a partner, and there's this urgency. And these women have become successful. They've got a great life. They're powerful, and that's the one missing thing. So I've definitely worked with that. For me, I was in my late 30s, but I was like divorced and clear that I needed to have a child. There were no ifs, ands, or buts, and I actually got a message that I would meet my man at a raw foods retreat in Arizona. So I put everything in storage. I gave up my apartment in Topanga Canyon, and I started to travel, and I found out about this raw foods retreat in Arizona, and sure enough, he was there after 2.5 months of traveling. But I didn't think he was my guy. Like, he and I had one meal together over 4 days of the retreat. The last day but there were like 10 people at the table. So we talked a little bit, and we shared later, like, we both looked at each other and thought, no, that's not the one. And then I moved to Santa Fe, and he moved to Santa Fe, but we didn't know the other. He said, I'm going to New Mexico. I'll call you. And he never called. But then 6 months later, a friend brings him to my house to my birthday party. And I said, oh, my God, you're that guy who said he was going to call, and you didn't call. I just blurted it out. I wasn't trying to give him a hard time. I was
Love
just
that.
like, oh, yeah, you're that guy, right? It just came out of my mouth, and he blushed. And then we got to be friends, and then, long story short, we had a daughter, and now we're co-parenting. We're not together, but our daughter clearly got us together. Just the universe didn't make any mistakes.
Share your story, please, about your daughter. I love this story. My listeners will love this.
What do you want to know about my daughter? I mean, you know her, but what should I share? When
you connected with her before, like that experience you had, and the things she connected you with, and.
Yeah, well, she first came to me in my 20s. I was in grad school, and at the time I didn't have a boyfriend, and I didn't feel like I was in any position to have a child. And she came so strong, and I walked into the school library, and this guy who had just had this psychic awakening all of a sudden walks up, put his hands on my belly. He's like, oh, my God, there's something here. It's your soul. And I was crying, and I was like, I'm not ready. He's like, okay, go do a ritual for her and let her know, And so I went home and I did a ritual for her, and she showed me at the time, if she had come in, like she wanted to work through some issues that I had also had with men, with relationships. And I was like, nope, I'm not bringing you in to work through these issues. I'm going to work through them, and then I'm going to have you. Like, we're not doing that. And I sent her away. And then I got married to a man who didn't want children, and then I kind of forgot over the years, and I was like, I'm not going to have children. I'm going to be a career woman. And I didn't think I wanted it, and I married a man who didn't want it. And then through that solid relationship, that was like the first solid relationship I had maybe ever had, or, the adult solid relationship, I started to go, oh, my God, I actually want a child. And then he didn't, so we split up, and that's where I got divorced and put everything in storage. And then my daughter was just talking to me. Over that year, I was in Santa Fe before her dad and I got together. I dated somebody else, and I just was like feeling her all the time. And I don't know what more to say, Kelly. You can prompt me if you want. But then, once we opened the door, she came right in. And her dad also had similar visions. He had a vision of like two. We both, there was a boy that could have come in and didn't for us, but he saw like 2 eagles in Alaska, again, like 10, 20 years before she was conceived. Before he and I met, he saw these 2 children. And when we were pregnant, he would see, oh, she's going to love snowboarding. Well, at the time we lived in LA. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Now we live in Colorado, and she loves skiing. She hasn't snowboarded yet.
That's funny.
Yeah, so her spirit was very pronounced. She loved water. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. We went, when I was pregnant, I was pregnant. I went on a solo trip, but she was in my belly, to Zion National Park, and I dipped in the river. And then we went back when she was about 2.5 or 3, and she points at the river, and she says, I've been here before. And I'm like, oh, you remember that? You were in my belly. But she always loved water. I could feel her jumping with joy in my womb whenever I took a shower, Music she loved in the womb. I could feel her like bobbing her head, and she's like learning to play piano now. She wants to be a singer when she grows up. So yeah, we definitely could feel and sense her personality.
I love that you just shared something I've shared before with people, and then you just get more confirmation into the spirit baby communication realm when you talk about how in the earth world, she goes, I was here before because her soul saw it before. And there was a few stories like that circulating. I'm sure there's so many more. And I remember hearing a story like that 15 years ago in birth psychology in a program, and they were so in awe about, I know, right? So people that don't realize birth psychology, there's a lot of course, it's the science of like conception and infancy, but there's a lot of really transcendental spiritual things that come up that really can't be explained by science, means, but also is very much received in the spiritual, emotional community and within that space. And so when I heard stories like that about children remembering really detailed things about things they should not know or they haven't seen, it just shows you that we don't need a brain to communicate with spirit baby, that the soul is, very present. And so I love that you shared that story. That's just so, I feel like helpful for people to connect with.
And she knows before she was herself, she was an angel. She's like, first you're an angel, then you're a baby, then you're a grown up, then you're an angel again.
Wow. I know. I've got to hung out with her a few times. I remember. And she's probably so big right now. I'd probably be like, who's this little lady?
I know. She's
so
7.
big.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, 7. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Another thing, I'm going to kind of, so many good things to talk about. I love this. You talk about the claiming your energetic space. And there's a nice practice in here. People have to get the book and look at it through. You said audio is coming up. Do this meditation, because the meditations are really nicely set up. I was like, ooh, I like the visual, the golden light, the rooted tree. I'm like, okay, it's, balancing the energy field is, gosh, we could do a whole podcast on that, huh?
Right. Yes, because often we're carrying stuff around. As women, we're naturally receptive, so we carry around so many other people's energy, and this relates to conception and developing intuition and receiving a man. It's like if you're already full because you're taking on stuff all the time and you don't know how to release energy, how can you receive any more? So that's when women put up walls. That's where the men around them can't be men, or they're pushing them away, or they just don't really receive what they desire. They're always starved, or they get depressed, or they gain weight because they're just full, So I think it's really important to learn how to release energy as women, and that's kind of the Holy Spirit energy too, or in different mythologies we've got, different ways of the creative cycles are creating, destroying, and maintaining. So as women, we've got all this creative energy, but we forget the destroy part is also sacred, and that doesn't have to be dramatic, but it can be just release, letting go.
I like that. Looking at the way you said that. Say that again.
So there, three aspects.
No, I mean the destroy, the release, like that piece. Say that again, that piece right there.
Destroying. So destroying is an aspect of creativity, and it doesn't have to be dramatic, but we have to do it. So we have to be able to let go or release energy, not always create, or not always take care of things. We go through the motions, we nurture things, we create, but the destroying part, it's such a part of the feminine and of creativity, but it's not popular in the culture, and it's feared. So I think it's really important to learn how to do it.
I made you repeat that because I feel like those words you were saying, I was like, oh, I want people to hear it again. So let's focus in on that, because it makes me kind of reflect into the spirit baby energy, conception, pregnancy, and birth loss. It's like I'm not avoiding grief. I'm not avoiding death. I use the word death, and I've had to go down my own spiral of death and grief and awareness around that, and I do feel like it is a big part of even.
It's hard.
Miscarriage is it's very, very common, and abortion is very, very common. And so what is this? It's, that piece of creativity, like there is creation and creativity, but there's also destruction and a rebirth or a kind of awareness around that. But to be with that, I know the more I expand into that. And I was kind of nervous in the beginning when I started receiving what am I doing with all this death stuff? And is that acceptable? And we're death phobic.
Yeah.
And, I'm realizing there's such a beauty in our grief, and it's not something that deserves to be thrown away. It's just part of who we are.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so important. And it reminds me of those words you said, because it's like you're saying like, oh, we're going to take this pretty nice safe piece and we're not going to look at the shadow and the dark. We're going to put that over there. But it's like, no, they're continuously moving in a creative line even together, as I would see it. As you said it, that's kind of how I saw it. So
the
important,
Holy Trinity,
so
really. Yeah, and I think anybody listening to this can think to a time in their life where some amazing new beginning happened because something ended. It's like you let go, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, there's this new thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even whether it's like a death of a career, a death of a relationship, right? It's like, of course, even the death of people, which is a very charged area to go into. Even reflecting with the death of my family members that happened within weeks apart. There, of course, the realization at that point was to be in deep grief. And then, but I was like, and I told myself, what am I doing with this? How am I going to then transform who I am and what kind of energy? And so with my mother's passing, I actually decided to move into medical intuition in a way I have never before.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, and then, because then I realized I wasn't claiming it the way I probably should have, because I was taking care of her a lot energetically. And she was my medical, energetic, So when I felt like when she passed, I felt like she made space for me to be of service to others in a different way. And it was very profound to me. I was like, whoa. And then I realized I was pretty good at it. I didn't realize I was like, if I just go into it and push into it and play around with it, it's like, oh, I could actually, this is working for me. But before, I think it was just say it again.
Right. With her, you'd been doing it anyway, just not professionally, maybe.
Yeah, that's what of course. I mean, there was so much taking from her space because she was in a lot of suffering. And so, and just to look at that, and I know it's very hard, of course, when women have miscarriage or stillbirth. It's not about running to find out the answer of, what is the transformation. It's ongoing. It just takes time and space for it to kind of move and unfold, I would say. Another really great thing I love is, and I even I put a little happy face, a little star, and I underlined it, is I love the river and the riverbank. You know where I'm going with this one. So the piece I underlined here I want to read is, it says, while the feminine flows like a river, the masculine provides the riverbank. The river doesn't bitch about the riverbank cramping her flow. She says, thank you for holding me, for being strong enough to contain all that I am. She dances against his edges and becomes more powerful in doing so. I love that. It's like, I could feel that. It contains me, but it doesn't own me. It's just like movement. It's like, that's really a beautiful way to kind of hold the space, because it feels forgiving too. It feels loving,
Yes, and I think that's where we've gotten really lost as a culture, where there's been a lot of blame, especially women blaming men more recently and blaming patriarchy. And it's like, wait a minute, the masculine in and of itself is not bad. The masculine, it has its distortions, as does the feminine, but the healthy masculine is that riverbank that provides structure that ideally should support the feminine creativity and flow and emotions and all of that. And when we experience that, it's ecstasy, it's euphoria. And that's what I think we all really want. So if we can quit bashing each other, blaming each other, separating, polarizing, labeling it, neutralizing gender because we're too confused or hurt, and if we can look at, oh, wow, in nature, actually, there are these elements and they work very beautifully together, it's so healing. And I think it's a core wound on the planet. So that when you ask what's the inspiration for the book, I would say that too, on a bigger level, that's the inspiration for the book. It's like, we all want this. How can we get over the wounds and confusion and remember it again?
Yeah, and there's so many. I love that you go into the dance of the feminine and masculine within. And that's the piece you talk about is, not making it like you say, it's all about the patriarch and there's a separation, and it's like the way you bring it in, it's like, no, we're in partnership. What is this like? But there is such a separation. This is what we see, and I know I have my issues, so I get it, based on coming into this world and what my father really taught me about the masculine, and then obviously then what my mother even taught me about that, and then I was like, oh gosh, this is like really intense, and now I'm like working it out with my own little family, and I'm going, I still feel like I don't know a lot of the answers, or I still sometimes feel like I'm messing up, or I'm like, oh God, I'm spilling over my stuff. But I love like the energy you bring into that divine feminine, divine masculine, and to play with that energy. Like for me, it's such a new energy to even say the word divine masculine. Like, that's probably a big trigger for me to go into like, oh, what is it like to sit with that and cultivate that? Because I do get polarized. I do. I'm all like, but I sound like my mom sometimes. I'm going, oh my gosh, my mom is like that. Oh gosh. And then I'm like, okay. I'm like, is this what we're kind of generational, right? This is where we're going. Okay.
Absolutely.
Then it's like, seeing your blind spots sometimes is not that easy.
No. I was talking to somebody today actually about this with daughters. You have sons, but I was talking to a friend who she was saying like some of the girls in her community were afraid of the man. Like they wouldn't have a play date with somebody if it was with the father versus the mother, and they obviously were scared of these men. They had no reason to. And we talked about why, and she's like, well, those mothers have issues with men. Those mothers had trauma with men. And they didn't even need, not that they even said anything, but the daughters can feel it. So then the daughters learn to be uncomfortable with men, and then there's this cycle that repeats. Versus like my daughter and, some other kids we know, they're growing up with healthy male role models, and so they are equally open to men and women. And I think, you don't want to be 100% trusting everybody without checking. You have to discern, is their energy feel right? But you don't want to just have a blanket like, okay, men are bad, women are safe, men are not. Like that's not helping anybody. So I think it's important.
That's what I heard. I think that's what I heard my whole life.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because I feel like I'm like Anne's just tapping into me right now. Like what Elba just said. I'm like, that was my mom was like, men are scary, they're abusive, they'll hurt you, because she was hurt. And then I'm going, oh my gosh, men are scary. Oh my gosh, I just got chills in my left thigh saying that. We're doing healing work right now. Because I'm going, wait a second. It's always been about men are dangerous and scary. That's what I remember at 15 years old. 15 years old, I was scared to date. Why would you be scared to date, Kelly? Because men are dangerous. They'll hurt you.
Right. And I'm sure she meant well in telling you that. But then the cycle goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting. Wow. So this book is incredible. It's so many, literally, it's like you're probably doing workshops on this book. You do retreats around this book. This is amazing. I love it. And everybody should get it. But I want you to, I'd love for you to share, how people can find your book and how they can either download it or buy it, a paperback, and your website, and anything else that you have upcoming that you would like to share.
Sure. So my website is AnnO'BrienLiving.com, AnnO'Brien living.com, and they can click on book and see the book and a link to the Amazon page, or you can go on Amazon and look for it. It's A Woman's Guide to Conscious Love, Navigating the Play of Feminine and Masculine Energy in Your Relationships. And there's a Kindle version, ebook, as well as a paperback. And I think, Kelly, you mentioned briefly, I'm starting tomorrow morning, actually, to record an audiobook. So in the coming months, I'll be announcing that. So people should email me. I should probably put that on the website, like get on my list if they want to be in the loop. Yeah. And then I do women's programs and programs around relationships, awakening intuition, spiritual development from time to time. I don't have one immediately other than locally here in Colorado. But I do have a Saturday special. It probably will still be going on. You're saying this comes out June 5th, right? 20-minute intuitive reading and energy healing for $50. So because of the whole COVID thing and just people needing more help, and some people, tight on money. It's normally $185 an hour or up, but it's $50 for 20 minutes. So people can email me or go on my website and fill out the form and get in touch to book one of those for the time being. It won't be for long, but it'll be for a little while probably.
Love it. So Anna, just any final last words before we end here?
Well, I just want to thank everyone listening, for being here, for being open to this conversation. I really do think this is a huge wound on the planet, and it's kind of like awakening our life force. I'm really all about awakening our life force. And when we have the feminine and masculine working together, that's what happens. That's what causes babies to be born. That's what causes creative, breakthroughs. And so I want to encourage you all to feel into day by day, moment by moment, what actions, thoughts, how can you show up to give to life, to encourage life force. And even if there's pain or grief or sadness or loss, like being with that, as well as your joy and all that you are. And as women, one thing I talk about in the book too is this whole range that we are of incredible dynamic creative expression and emotional range. And so I want to just encourage you to feel and be with that and find appropriate ways to, express that's important. The world needs that, and that the feminine is really leading, but we're not leading against the masculine or in competition. We're leading in cooperation. So just to honor those, the women listening and anyone listening for being a part of this.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne, for being here. It was wonderful connecting with you yet again.
Thank you. My pleasure. Good to reconnect with you.
Yeah. And thank you for joining episode 89, June 5th, 2020. And let's see. If you like my podcast, please subscribe, leave reviews. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio podcast this week. Please check out my book. It's a journal, Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby journal. And to learn more about services and supporting people around the world, private one-on-one, online classes, programs, you can visit kellyannmeehan.com as well as soulbabycommunication.com.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.